In Mexico, the Chamber of Deputies approved in general the reform of the judicial branch by 359 votes in favor and 135 against. In Venezuela, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino López denounced that a coup d'etat is still underway by far-right agents after the July 28th presidential election. And the Israeli army continues its siege on the occupied West Bank for the 8th consecutive day. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Mexican Chamber of Deputies approved in general on Wednesday the reform of the judicial branch by 359 votes in favor and 135 against, after a session that lasted 11 hours. The session took place in an alternate headquarters due to protests that tried to prevent the session. The reform aims at democratizing the judicial system in the country by, among other things, establishing the election of ministers, judges and magistrates and other public positions through popular vote, as well as the reduction of their term in office. Furthermore, under the principles of Republican austerity, it intends to put a stop to the excessive and onerous expenses of the judiciary. During his speech this Wednesday morning, the President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, celebrated the approval of the reform that will go to the Senate.
Bueno, es muy buena noticia. Muy buena noticia.
Ah, well. It is very good news. Very good news. It passes already to the Senate, 357 against 130. How much was needed? 334. Yes, very good.
During her intervention in the President's morning program, Elizabeth Garcia Vilchis affirmed that they have repeatedly denied scandals against the reform in the past.
They created a scandal in social networks and WhatsApp groups to try to deceive people, and so it goes. This is the 5th time that in this section we deny this fake news. They don't get tired of their deceiving attempts.
In this context, Garcia Vilchis went on to further deny the scandals and false news published against the reform in the media and social networks since September 3rd.
Last Tuesday morning, September 3rd, a sort of synchronized swim in lies happened against the reform to the Constitution of Mexico City regarding private, public, and social property, as it was repeated everywhere that with the entry into force of this reform, private property would disappear in Mexico City, and that the owners of houses, apartments, or land would be obliged to hand them over to the government, or else the administration could expropriate them, but all of this is false.
The President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, denounced new attempts to destabilize the peace and institutionality of the Central American country. The head of state repudiated any type of meeting between drug traffickers and politicians who only seek to generate chaos in the national territory. She also rejected the plan of these destabilizing agents to overthrow her government and destroy the next electoral process in the nation. Likewise, the President stressed that the same coup forces of 2009 are re-articulating with the national and international media to plot a new coup d'etat, while urging the population to repel such actions against Honduran institutions. She also stated that her government will not allow the extradition treaty with the United States to be used in a selective manner.
Pueblo hondureño, en relación al video del 2013 publicado hoy en redes.
Honduran people, in relation to the video of 2013 published today in networks, I condemn all types of negotiations between drug traffickers and politicians. As I expressed in previous days, after the threats of the ambassador of the United States accusing the Joint Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces and the former Minister of Defense of drug traffickers, I ratify that peace and internal security of the Republic are at risk. The plan to destroy my socialist, democratic government and the next electoral process are.
In Venezuela, the Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, assured that a coup d'etat against the country is still underway after the July 28th presidential election. Padrino Lopez stated on a lecture at the Military Academy of Caracas that the July 29th and 30th criminal incidents right after the presidential elections were not the end, but are part of a coup plot that will continue seeking to undermine the Venezuelan institutionality. In addition, Padrino Lopez denounced the supportive actions of foreign governments favoring these attacks that attempt against the country's sovereignty and peace by targeting its services and institutions.
Just a couple of days ago, on Friday, we received an attack, one of those of the fourth generation and the fifth generation of warfare, an attack on the power grid, which is not the power grid per se, but it is the water, the communications, everything that implies stopping a country and taking away its electricity. We have just seen it, and therefore, he draws as conclusions this is a coup d'etat, which has not ended as it is still underway. And we see, Mr. Doctor, the extraterritoriality and international scope of the coup d'etat, a coup d'etat that was well planned, well done, which disturbs then, intends to disturb, the conscience of the Venezuelan human being.
Likewise, the Minister of Defense of Venezuela granted that the armed forces are a blatant target of U.S. imperialism to break down the institutionality of the Bolivarian Republic.
We must realize we are actually facing permanent aggressions. PhD Professor Moncada drew as conclusions that since 2002, since that decade we were already facing the attempts of the US imperialism to disrupt the Venezuelan institutionality, to destroy it. Precisely the US is willing to take over the country, we must be aware of it, and from now on, we must develop all forms. First of all, we must be aware of what the Venezuelan people is going through, of what Venezuela as a nation and the armed forces as an institution are going through, because we are a permanent target of US imperialism that is breaking down the Venezuelan state, and breaking down the national spirit of the people, its institutions, its democracy.
Venezuelan Minister of Transportation Ramon Velázquez Araguayan denounced on Tuesday a new sabotage against the electric system of the railroad at the Libertador Simón Bolívar's station in La Rinconada, Caracas. The minister affirms this attack took place in the early hours of the night, where a fire was detected in the electric plant. Moreover, Velázquez emphasizes that thanks to the works of the fire department, the operation of the railroad has been reestablished with total normality. He condemns these criminal acts and has requested an investigation in this case to find those responsible for these actions intended to disturb the peace of the Venezuelan people.
Nosotros condenamos desde el Ministerio del Poder Popular para el Transporte, condenamos estos hechos.
From the Ministry of Transportation, we condemn these events. It is not a way to do politics. These are actions that disturb the peace of a people that is determined and clear about the direction we must take. As our President, Nicolás Maduro, the leader of victory, calm, and sanity, has indicated to us. We will continue moving forward to prevent the extreme right from affecting the tranquility of the Venezuelan people. We are already requesting and organizing the necessary investigation to consolidate this accusation that we are making public today, and to find those responsible for this act, who seek to affect the tranquility of the Venezuelan people. But they have not succeeded and will not succeed.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Brazil, a fire of big proportions consumed 9,500 out of 48,000 hectares in Brasilia National Park, with the largest natural reserve in the capital. Local authorities reported that the fire spread through the vegetation, affecting several regions of the federal district, including water springs that are key for supplying the population. In this context, authorities suspect the fire was intentionally originated, as some people were seen in the place, as several outbreaks happened at the same time. Meanwhile, agents of the fire department continue working to extinguish the flames and prevent them from spreading further. In France, in the southern city of Avignon, a 71-year-old man is on trial charged with enlisting dozens of strangers to abuse his drugged wife. This way, allegations against Dominique Pellicot were exposed in 2020 when he was caught filming up women's skirts in a supermarket. During searches, investigators came across thousands of photos and videos showing his wife, Giselle, being sexually abused by strangers recruited via online. The trial, due to conclude in December, holds rape charges against Pellicot and 51 other men who were effectively tracked down, while the number of actual suspects rises to 72. The victim, who was unaware of the abuse that went on for a decade, has asked for the trial to be open to the public, as she wants the shame around these cases to change sides.
She also believes that, even though there will be some extremely difficult moments, she doesn't have to hide or be ashamed of what she's been through, as many victims of sexual assault, rape, and other serious crimes sometimes feel. And it's also a way for her to say that we can overcome this ordeal, even if it's just the beginning today, and that it's important for this to be known and for shame to change sides.
On Saturday, UNICEF launched an emergency tender for Mpox vaccines to 8 nations most affected by this virus. However, the shortage of vaccines is still a reality in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, one of the countries hardest hit by the disease. Through a joint communique, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, and the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, stressed the need to both secure immediate access to available Mpox vaccines and surge production. While the organizations are trying to negotiate profitable deals and reaching conditional supply agreements, the DRC reported over 18,000 Mpox cases so far this year, with a death toll of 629. In this context, doctors are concerned about the vaccine shortage.
At the moment, in any case, it would be nice if we could have the vaccines, because I see patients asking for the vaccines themselves. So you find that right now it's a worry, and it would be desirable for it to be given urgently.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation forces continue their siege on the Gaza Strip for the 334th day since the onset of its genocide against the Palestinian people. In this context, civil defense teams recover 1 dead body and 6 wounded after the Zionist regime shelled a residential apartment in the Al-Tufa neighborhood east of Gaza City. In addition, an Israeli attack on a barracks housing a family in Al-Shaba wounded 4 other civilians, as health authorities reported more people were injured in other parts of the devastated enclave following drone strikes and artillery bombardments launched by occupation forces. The death toll of the ongoing genocide in Gaza has increased to 40,819 since October 7th. Meanwhile, the Israeli army continues siege of the occupied West Bank for the 8th consecutive day. At least 33 Palestinians have been killed and 130 wounded since last Wednesday, most of them in Jenin. Israeli military vehicles destroyed the streets of Jenin as part of the campaign of harassment and collective punishment against the Palestinian people. Municipal authorities reported that 80% of the city's infrastructure has been severely damaged. The authorities added that at least 30 Palestinians have been arrested since Tuesday night. In this context, mourners gathered for the funeral of 16-year-old Palestinian teenager Lujain Osama Musleh, who was shot dead by the Israeli army during a military operation in the Jenin governorate in Kafr Dan in the occupied West Bank.
When she opened the curtains, the sniper was in front of her, but she didn't see him. The sniper saw her. A little girl, unarmed, she didn't represent any danger, a bullet to her forehead. She was martyred on the spot. She was 16 and a school student. She had wanted martyrdom since she was 10, and she got it.
In the United States, pro-Palestinian demonstrations were resumed at Columbia University in New York. Prior to the beginning of the new academic year, dozens of students protested against the aggression perpetrated by the Zionist Israeli army in Gaza that is supported by the United States government through economic and military assistance. Among the expressions of protest that several students resorted to, the alma mater statue of the campus was stained with red paint in reference to the blood shed by thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. In Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan received his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on his official visit to the Turkish capital. The Turkish head of state greeted al-Sisi at the city's airport in what would be the first visit of an Egyptian head of state to Ankara in 12 years and comes amid a process of reapproachment between the two countries after a decade marked by tensions on both sides. In this regard, the leaders agreed to expand bilateral relations and signed 17 agreements to enhance cooperation, as President Erdogan affirmed that relations with Cairo are at a high level. The government of Turkey applied for full membership in the BRICS group ahead of the bloc's summit to be held in Russia in October. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed his interest in expanding his global influence and forging new ties beyond his traditional Western allies. According to the Turkish administration, the geopolitical center has shifted away from developed countries, which is why the nation is now seeking to broaden its horizons. On the other hand, Russian advisors assured that the request of the Turkish government is under evaluation, as are those of Venezuela, Malaysia, Thailand, and Azerbaijan. The Russian government denounced the involvement of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, countries in the conflict with Ukraine. The spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Minister, Maria Zakharova, assured that the West is promoting the military aggression of the Kyiv regime against the Russian territory. According to Zakharova, the Western nations that claimed that their interest was to support Ukraine's path to democracy now prize and support the attack against the citizens in the Russian Kursk region. Furthermore, the diplomat assured that within the framework of these hostilities, Moscow is ready to give an immediate response to NATO in case of new terrorist attacks against its territory. In this context, the Russian Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov warned that the United States maintains a destructive role for the security of the European continent. According to the Kremlin spokesman, Washington receives economic benefits from its strategies to undermine security in Europe. In this regard, he denounced that the United States is getting more involved in the conflict with Ukraine and constantly rising aggressions, which raises suspicions about its limitless pretensions in the region. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.